I don't have any cash to lend to workers from the 80s. Stop begging and just go home already. I felt anger at the mocking attitude of Mr. Johnson, a bank employee. To treat a customer like a beggar was simply the wrong way to handle things, no matter how you look at it. Fine then, I'll stop lending you the system as well. With those words coming out naturally, I turned around to leave. What? The system? Wait a second, what are you talking about? Hey, wait up. He seemed confident at first, but suddenly his demeanor changed, and he began to show signs of agitation. But it was already too late. The next day, I received a call from Mr. Johnson at the office. So you finally decided to call. Thanks to you, I got chewed out by my boss all day yesterday. Sounds like you're planning to cut ties with our company. His tone was softer than yesterday's, but his impolite attitude was unchanged. And what's the issue with that? If that happens, I'll be punished too. Can't you just let bygones be bygones about yesterday? Without showing any remorse and with a slight grin, he made this request, to which I sighed. Soon, he would regret his actions once he learned who I really was. My name is Harry. I'm a 52-year-old engineer at System A Corporation, a company specializing in system development. I've been working exclusively on this side since the company was founded. System A is particularly notable for its achievements in developing financial systems. The finance sector demands high technical skill and reliability, and System A offers a one-stop service that covers everything from planning to operation, earning widespread satisfaction. For well-received existing systems, we're also proactive in packaging them. Unlike custom-made scratch developments tailored for each client, packaged systems lower the barrier to implementation. This is because existing systems that meet security standards can be customized with additional features to suit clients, making them highly sought after for both safety and cost reasons. Thanks to the popularity of these services, System A has been steadily growing since its inception. With a track record built in financial system development, we've recently seen an increase in clients beyond banks and securities firms, steadily expanding our business scope. Consequently, each year we attract more talented system engineers, and we've begun to handle core systems in a wide range of industries, including industrial sectors. Currently, we have about 150 employees. We're still a small regional company, but I think it's a fantastic environment where high-level engineers can learn and grow together. As the most senior engineer at System A, I'm also in charge of training, but there's a lot I learn from the younger employees. The mutual teaching and skill enhancement among engineers, irrespective of age or position, is truly invaluable. That's why I've been resistant to the idea of advancing to a managerial role and retiring from engineering. Staying active in the field at this age is entirely due to my own stubbornness. Thankfully, I'm allowed to lead on site and continue working as an active engineer. I've been interested in anything computer-related since my student days and loved making ideas a reality. Even when the systems I created didn't work well, finding bugs and identifying improvements was always fun for me. This aspect of me hasn't changed at all. And since I started working as a system engineer, I've also discovered the joy of seeing the world become more convenient through my creations. I hope to remain on site as long as possible, continuing to do great work with everyone. One day, I had to visit one of System A's clients, a regional bank named Starshine Bank. Currently, all the information system suites implemented at Starshine Bank were developed by me. This package and its sales services have been introduced in other financial institutions as well, and have received high praise. I hadn't visited Starshine Bank recently, as I had delegated its post-implementation operations and maintenance to my subordinates. However, with my subordinate unavailable due to other projects, I, who was nearby handling a different matter, had to step in as a substitute. The task involved routine system maintenance and discussions about future improvements. I had informed the bank's contact person in advance that I would be coming today instead of my subordinate. The contact has consistently been a woman named Ms. Emily. During our long-standing business relationship, I had met her several times. Though she's a whole generation younger than me, she has always been a dependable and sincere person since our first meeting, leaving me with no worries about her handling sudden tasks. This is a busy time for both of us, making it hard to find flexible time slots, but I knew that even a brief meeting with her would be productive. With that in mind, I decided to leave my main work at another client's place and, despite a tight schedule, made it a point to be on time for our appointment. As the scheduled time approached, I got into the company car. I left early just to be safe, expecting a calm journey to Starshine Bank, a route that rarely sees congestion. However, during the drive, the flow of traffic was disrupted. As I looked around to see what was happening, I noticed a sports car with aggressive driving coming up from behind. On the narrow road, it revved its engine and sped up, only to come to a sudden stop, and continued with provocative driving, like tailgating unnecessarily close. There were several nerve-wracking moments, a type of driving utterly unsuited for the peaceful country road, almost like testing the car's limits, dangerously so. Concerned about the meeting time, but more worried about getting into an accident, I decided to pull over to the side of the road. Wanting to let the poorly mannered sports car go ahead, I waited while observing its behavior. During that time, it continued to drive recklessly, bothering other vehicles. At an intersection, its erratic driving startled an elderly man who then fell over. "Ah, that's dangerous." I gripped the steering wheel tightly, exclaiming aloud to myself in the car. This sports car narrowly missed hitting the fallen man and sped off at an alarming speed. What a reckless person to just leave someone who's hurt. The driver must have seen the man fall from the driver's seat, but seemed utterly unconcerned, which infuriated me. I quickly got out of the car and ran over to the man sitting at the edge of a crosswalk. "Are you okay? I'll call an ambulance right now." Fortunately, it didn't seem like he had any serious injuries, but it could have been much worse. I informed Starshine Bank that I would be a bit delayed due to trouble on the road. After calling an ambulance, I decided to stay with the elderly man until his family arrived. Then, driving safely but quickly, I headed towards Starshine Bank. Due to my rush, my hair reflected in the rearview mirror was disheveled, not at all suitable for a client meeting. Before meeting with the client, I knew I had to at least tidy up my appearance. That's when I remembered about my attire. At the major company's factory where I had been working earlier, the rule is to wear work clothes even when visitors are working on system development sites. Thus, I was still in my work clothes while driving the company car. As I parked at Starshine Bank, I planned to quickly change into a suit. I reached for the suit I had kept in the back seat of the car, just as another vehicle entered the parking lot. Seeing it, I noticed the car was strikingly similar to the sports car that had been driving recklessly earlier. Same model, same color. Given that it wasn't a common vehicle, the chances of it being the same person were high. Watching it park in an employee-designated space, I wondered if the driver was a bank employee. I hadn't taken note of the reckless car's license plate number, but then I realized I could confirm it with the dash cam. Stepping out of the company car quietly, I started to tidy up my appearance while keeping an eye on the situation. Then, a young man emerged from the sports car. Dressed in a flashy, branded suit, he had a flamboyant appearance. He seemed to be in his early 30s. He noticed me as well, and our eyes met briefly. As I began to remove my work clothes to don the suit, the man glanced at me, his face contorting as if he'd seen something distasteful. Frowning, he appraised me from head to toe with a look of disdain, making me feel uncomfortable under his openly contemptuous gaze. While working in the factory can get a bit dirty, I wasn't covered in mud or excessively unclean. Admittedly, it would have been better to change before visiting the client, but there was no suitable place nearby, and the unexpected delay on the road left me without time for that. If he was a bank employee, this was certainly not an appropriate way to regard a visiting client. After he sighed heavily while looking at me, the man entered the Starshine Bank building. I watched him go, then checked to make sure no one else was around. Just to be cautious, I took a photo of the sports car and its license plate number. With all preparations done, I finally headed towards Starshine Bank. Upon entering the bank, I noticed it was less crowded than usual, perhaps due to the time. Approaching the counter to ask for Ms. Emily, my contact person, I noticed there were significantly fewer open windows than usual. There were no familiar faces among the reception staff, and every window was occupied with customers. Already late for my appointment, I looked around for someone who could help. That's when I spotted the suit-clad man I had seen in the parking lot. He was at a desk behind the reception area, seemingly busy with some work. Realizing he must be a bank employee, I hesitantly approached him. "Excuse me. My name is Harry, and I have an appointment with Ms. Emily today. Could you please call her for me?" There was no immediate response to my query, making me wonder if he hadn't heard me. Concerned about the time, as I had another job lined up, I grew increasingly anxious. Raising my voice and calling out a few times finally got a response, though he only shot me a reluctant glance. Frowning deeply, he let out an obvious sigh of exasperation. "Please don't raise your voice. What do you want?" His name tag read Johnson, with a small and training mark, suggesting he might be new or recently transferred. "My name is Harry, and I'm here to see my contact, Ms. Emily." "Call her for what? It's a waste of time. You should probably just leave." What do you mean by that?" I asked, confused by his attitude. Without even looking at me, Takeuchi showed a clear sign of irritation. "Look, I don't know which small company you're from, but I've already told you, we can give loans to shabbily dressed old men like you." I was taken aback by his words. He must have seen me changing from my work clothes in the parking lot and misunderstood. Still, it was a harsh way to put it. Ms. Emily probably handles loan matters too, but assuming I'm here for a loan is a big mistake. "No, you're mistaken. I'm not here for a loan." Yeah, enough of that. Please leave." "But it's true. I have an appointment with Ms. Emily for regular maintenance and a discussion about our company's services. I apologize for being slightly late. There was some trouble on my way here." I couldn't help but think that the trouble might have been caused by this very man, but without concrete proof, I chose to hold my peace for now. Everyone always says that. They pretend to have appointments or try every trick to get in. "We're busy here, so please leave," Mr. Johnson said dismissively, not believing my story and showing no willingness to listen. When he attempted to shoo me away, I urgently persisted. "Just check, and you'll see. I don't have much time. Please, just ask once. I'm begging you." Despite my earnest plea, Johnson just snorted in amusement. "Sorry, I don't lend money to guys from the 80s. Stop begging and just go home already." His mocking tone filled me with anger. Treating a customer like a beggar was utterly wrong. Feeling frustrated and helpless in this deadlock, I sighed. "Fine, then I'm also done lending you the system." With those words coming out naturally, I turned on my heel. "Wait, what? The system? Hey, what are you talking about?" "Wait up." Mr. Johnson, who had seemed so composed, suddenly changed his attitude, starting to look unsettled. I heard his desperate calls to stop me, but it was too late. I changed back into my work clothes and returned to the job site I had left. Trying to contain my anger, I gripped the steering wheel. My phone rang several times, but I ignored all the calls, focusing on driving. Upon returning to the client's factory, I parked the car and took a moment to breathe. Then, seeing my phone ring again, I reluctantly answered it. "Mr. Harry, it seems you were here earlier, but we couldn't assist you right away. I'm sorry about that. Where are you now?" The voice on the other end was a worried-sounding Miss Emily. From her tone, it seemed she hadn't heard anything about the incident. "Didn't Mr. Johnson tell you? He refused to listen to me and told me to leave, so we've decided to terminate our dealings. Thank you for everything until now." "What? Terminate the deal? Please wait. Can you explain what happened? I have a tight schedule today, so I must go. Mr. Johnson knows everything. Please ask him." I felt bad for Miss Emily, who had always been kind, but I stated the facts and ended the call before becoming emotional. The decision to cease dealings wasn't a threat or a spur-of-the-moment emotion. I couldn't see how a bank that employs someone who freely insults clients could maintain a good business relationship with us. Even if Mr. Johnson was in training, it's a serious issue that a bank employee lacks awareness of their role as the face of the bank. More importantly, the idea that it's acceptable to mistreat customers who aren't immediately beneficial is something I cannot understand. As someone who wants to improve the world through my work, I briefly reported to my subordinate, who was the person in charge, about the day's events, including the decision to terminate our dealings with Starshine Bank, by email. To clear my head, I took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. After completing the remaining tasks of the day, I felt completely exhausted, both mentally and physically. Deciding to head straight home, I called the office to inform them, but then my phone vibrated in my hand. Seeing an unfamiliar number, I hesitated but ultimately decided to answer. It turned out to be from the family of the elderly man who had fallen earlier. I had given my number to the man just in case they needed to confirm any details about the incident. The family reported that the hospital checks showed no serious issues and expressed their sincere thanks. A natural smile appeared on my face, relieved that the situation hadn't turned into something worse. It had been a day full of various events, but hearing this good news at the end made my heart feel a bit lighter. Having calmed down, I reflected on the day's events. The connection between the morning's accident and the banker, Mr. Johnson, still bothered me, so I decided to check the dashcam footage. The next day, I received a call at the office from Starshine Bank. It was passed to me by my subordinate, who said it was Mr. Johnson on the line. The unpleasant memories from yesterday resurfaced, and I hesitated but cautiously picked up the receiver. "Yes, this is Harry. So you finally answer. Because of you, I got an earful from my boss all day yesterday. Sounds like you're saying you want to end our contract." His tone was softer than yesterday's, but his rude attitude remained unchanged. "And what's the issue with that? If that happens, I'll be punished too. Please, can't you just let bygones be bygones about yesterday?" Unabashed and smirking as he asked, I sighed at his audacity. "I have to decline. Surely you're not considering this an apology?" "Huh? Why should I apologize? Who would think a guy in work clothes was an engineer? It's as much your fault for causing the misunderstanding. If you think it's acceptable to completely stop the system used by over 1,000 employees at Starshine Bank, I won't object. Business would likely halt for a while." "Over 1,000. Johnson's voice rose in surprise, clearly not having grasped the full implications. "Even if that's true, a regular employee like you can't just decide to end a contract. Who do you think you are? I am the developer of the system suites implemented at Starshine Bank, and while I work on site, I also hold the position of director." "Developer? Director? You must be joking." Faced with this new information, Johnson was clearly shaken. Though I prefer being on site, my achievements had been recognized, and I was involved in management. I was a director in more than just name, but I seldom mentioned it. It would be better for you if this was a joke. Regarding the contracts for the systems I've developed, I do have a considerable amount of authority. Whether you believe it or not is up to you. As I tried to end a call, Johnson desperately tried to keep me on the line. "Wait, don't hang up. We're not done talking. I have no further need to talk. Goodbye." Ignoring his shouting from the other end, I put down the receiver. The next day, I received another call, this time an apology from Ms. Emily. "I apologize for Mr. Johnson's behavior. I'm terribly sorry for what happened. I heard he refused to let you in when you came to visit us. I would like to personally apologize. Would that be all right?" Her voice over the phone sounded unusually weak, making me feel sorry for her. I also reflected on my own actions, realizing that the stress had gotten the better of me. "I'm sorry for being late for the appointment. However, assuming that everyone visiting Ms. Emily is there for a loan is, frankly, inappropriate." He did that. "I'm so sorry. This is a clear case of our lack of proper guidance. Please, if there's anything else, let us know. We'll ensure strict measures are taken." It seemed likely Johnson hadn't disclosed the full extent of what happened. Perhaps the story got twisted to something like, a man named Harry visited to see Miss Emily but, for some reason, got angry and left before being attended to. I briefly explained to Miss Emily the events of the previous day. As I recounted Johnson's prejudiced and abusive remarks, I could hear her gasp in shock over the phone. "I really don't know how to apologize enough for this. He seemed to be in training, but he didn't look like a new employee. Is there any particular reason why he's asking such probing questions?" Miss Emily began to speak cautiously. "I'm embarrassed to say this, but he's actually a relative of our bank president. While his credentials are impressive, he has caused numerous problems and been transferred between branches. Since joining us, he's continued to cause trouble. Is that why there were so few open counters and the bank seemed unusually quiet when I visited?" "Yes, exactly. Persistent issues with other bank employees led to resignations and transfer requests, resulting in a temporary staff shortage. It seemed that they had tried to avoid letting Johnson handle customer service or dealings with clients alone. However, unfortunately, No one was available to support him yesterday. I nodded in understanding. I don't mean to make excuses when we owe you an apology, but could you please give us a chance to apologize? If we stop the system, it will cause serious problems that could affect the survival of our branch. No need for an apology. I understand the situation. If your bank continues to employ someone who causes such problems, I don't see these issues going away. My decision remains unchanged. Protecting a problem-causing employee just because they're family is no sign of good management. If the president thinks this way, it's likely that Starshine Bank will continue to lose good employees, which doesn't bode well for its future. Please, let us apologize. If Mr. Johnson's behavior is not improved when we visit, you can terminate the contract without hesitation. If that happens, I'll resign as my way of apologizing for the trouble caused to you, Mr. Harry. Hold on, I don't want you to resign. Despite my objections, Ms. Emily, clearly determined, kept insisting, asking me for one last chance. Moved by her earnestness, I reluctantly agreed to give them one final opportunity to apologize. A few days later, Ms. Emily and Johnson arrived at System A's office building. As they entered the reception room, both stood up, dressed in suits. Ms. Emily immediately began with a sincere apology. I am truly sorry for what happened. She apologized sincerely, while Johnson stood stiffly beside her, looking uncomfortable. When I glanced at him, he averted his eyes and even let out a small sigh. Noticing this, Ms. Emily looked up sharply and glared at him. I told you that if your attitude didn't change, as your supervisor, I have the authority given by the president to discipline you. Are you prepared to sever ties with not just Starshine Bank but also the president if you continue this behavior? It seemed Ms. Emily had spoken to the president after our conversation and had taken responsibility, gaining authority over Johnson's situation. Chastised by her stern words, Johnson, overwhelmed, slowly looked down. I'm sorry. Though reluctantly, he apologized for the first time. Watching him, I thought he seemed like a sulking schoolchild who had caused trouble, and I sighed. Ms. Emily, I fully appreciate your sincerity, but Mr. Johnson's insincere apology isn't necessary. If he can't reflect on his actions, he's bound to repeat them. Hold on. Don't jump to conclusions. Losing our contract will be a big loss for you too. Are you okay with that? As Johnson snapped at me, Ms. Emily interjected with a stern voice, Mr. Johnson. I gave her a look, signaling that it was fine. I don't work solely based on profit and loss, unlike you. However, in the long run, maintaining ties with a company that harbors individuals like you poses a management risk. It's likely to lead to incidents that can tarnish our reputation. Don't act like you know everything. I'm apologizing, aren't I? What more do you want? What value is there in your apology, Mr. Johnson? I am dissatisfied with everything. Your lack of remorse, and your belief that an apology can fix everything. Johnson's face turned red, and he began to tremble. Raised in a wealthy family, and always believing himself to be elite, he had likely never been so directly challenged before. The mix of anger and humiliation was evident even from a distance. So, how do I show I'm remorseful, huh? No matter what I say, you've already decided not to restore the contract, you coward. Johnson retorted. What exactly are you remorseful for? Is it for judging me based on my appearance, hurling insults, and preventing Miss Emily from helping me? Or is it for your reckless driving on the same day, causing trouble? Or perhaps for fleeing the scene after an accident involving a pedestrian? I challenged him. Johnson was left speechless by my questions. Miss Emily's eyes widened in shock. What do you mean? Harry, do you know something about this? Yes. All of this happened on the day I visited Starshine Bank. I explained the reasons for my delay that day. The dangerous driving of a sports car. The elderly man who fell and was ignored by the driver, leading me to stop and help. And then, the same car parked at Starshine Bank, with Johnson emerging from it. What a situation. To think it wasn't just workplace troubles, but actual criminal behavior. It's a misunderstanding. Sure, I came in after noon that day, but just because it was the same make of car doesn't mean it was me. It's not like there's only one of that car in the world. I thought you might say that, so I checked the dashcam footage. I have confirmed that the car at the time of the accident and the one parked at Starshine Bank belonged to you, Mr. Johnson. I showed them the photos I had prepared earlier, clearly matching the number plates in both images. I've also informed the family of the victim. I will be reporting this to the police, just so you're aware. Johnson's face turned pale, and he began to tremble as if facing the end of the world. Please, not the police. If this gets out, I could be disowned. He was clearly terrified of being cut off from his family and losing the support of the powerful individuals in the Starshine Bank vicinity, including the bank president. He likely relied on his influential family and relatives to cover up his problems until now, already causing significant trouble at Starshine Bank. He probably nearly exhausted the bank president's patience. Still, Johnson seemed to understand that police involvement was a line he couldn't cross. The decision to press charges is up to the affected parties. To atone for your actions and for the sake of Starshine Bank, which you've troubled greatly, I suggest you resign. Johnson collapsed to his knees, but I turned my attention back to Ms. Emily. Our hope is that Mr. Johnson atones and reflects on his actions. We're open to reconsidering our contract with Starshine Bank if he is no longer there. Thank you. I will convey this to our higher-ups. There's one more condition, though. Yes, what is it? We'll accommodate it as best as we can. At my words, Ms. Emily's face, which had softened for the first time today, tensed up again with anticipation. I smiled to reassure her. The condition is, someone as sincere as you, Ms. Emily, continues to be our contact. It would be great if Starshine Bank had more people like you. With that said, it left the room. Ms. Emily, her eyes filled with tears, kept looking until I was completely out of sight. Later on, Johnson faced police interrogation. With sufficient evidence already gathered, it didn't take long for him to be officially charged for his reckless driving. Apparently, he had a history of such behavior, as locals had provided multiple eyewitness accounts. As for the accident I witnessed, the elderly man was a well-known landlord in the area. The community, determined not to let the disruptive driver off the hook, was steadfast in pursuing legal action. Johnson's unlucky streak seemed destined to continue in the courts. Following these events, Starshine Bank officially decided to terminate his employment. The enraged bank president disowned him and even demanded compensation. Left without any backing and jobless, Johnson found himself burdened with a substantial amount of debt. Meanwhile, I continued to work happily as an engineer at System A, alongside my fellow employees. After this incident, I was reminded to show more director-like qualities and to behave in a manner befitting my position. I don't mind being underestimated, but it's important that neither System A nor its employees suffer because of it. To contribute more to the world through our developments, I've started to get more actively involved in management recently. My commitment to being hands-on won't change, but I'm happy to evolve in a positive direction. The deal with Starshine Bank was resumed once the issue with Johnson was settled. As before, Ms. Emily continues to be our contact, and our relationship remains strong. Life has returned to its usual calm, but there's one thing that's changed. My personal relationship with Ms. Emily. Frequent interactions during the incident led me to see her as a reliable person, and our mutual respect grew. Both of us, having focused solely on our careers and being single, found common ground and enjoyed engaging conversations. Eventually, we started meeting for meals in our personal time. Harry, I will work hard to make Starshine Bank a company you can speak highly of. Please, watch over us. Her words, a bit shy, I later realized were her way of confessing. Quite fitting for someone as dedicated to her work as her. I cherish this evolving daily life and want to hold it dear.